What's going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Dan, Kev, and Stevie P coming at you once again. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, Kev? What's going on, Dan? What's going on?
Hey, good evening, guys. How's it going?
Good. All right, so today we're going to do a little Dynasty talk for you guys. But first, if you are listening, remember to check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. It's www.4thandinchesff.com for all kinds of content, articles, blogs, player profiles. You know, we have a draft guide for you guys. Check it out. And also hit that subscribe button and, stay in touch with us. So I guess with that, we will get into it. First, let's talk about the difference in roster size and starting lineups and starting formats with Dynasty. Steve, why don't you talk? You pretty much, I know you set up our league in our Dynasty league. So why don't you talk about the standard format for starting lineups that typically are in your Dynasty leagues?
Yeah, Dynasty leagues, it all depends on how your league does it. But normally in a Dynasty league, you're going to have large starting lineups, anywhere from, I've seen 15, starting player lineups, if you're doing IDP, individual defensive players, you're going to have more obviously starting players, but anywhere from 10 to 15 is normal. Your bench sizes, you could have anywhere from 22 I've seen all the way up to 35, 40. It just depends on really how big the league is, how many players you guys are having on your bench, if you're doing IDP, and all that kind of stuff is kind of how it fluctuates with the amount of players that you're starting and the amount of players that you have on your bench. So it really just depends on how you're doing it. In our Dynasty League, we actually have 27 roster spots. 2 of those spots are IR spots, and we also have 25 player spots. So you have 10 starters. We actually don't have kickers because kickers don't matter. But you definitely can do it however you want. However your imagination takes you is what you can do with the Dynasty League. It's a lot of fun. Having big rosters like that, you're not going to get a whole lot of guys on the waiver wire. They're really not going to be available because most people have, their backups and their handcuffs and all that stuff. So, with that said, let's get to it.
Yeah, I mean, with ours, like Steve said, we kind of go quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 2 flexes, a tight end, and a defense. I really like that starting lineup, especially for Dynasty. It's a 10-team league. So, traditionally you're going with and now in our league, it's 250 players. You have up to 270 if you include the IR spots, which is pretty much basically what, a normal league would look like. The size of a normal league, normal 12-team league is what, 12 by, it might have 12 teams and about 16 to 18 roster spots. So, you're basically cutting down, 100 players, 80 players, somewhere around there?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so, yeah, and obviously the drafting is going to be a little bit different in Dynasty. Certain players are going to drop based on their age. You're going to look for more young players that have shown a spark. Obviously, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. Those 3 are typically the 3 top, 3 of the top 4 in traditional leagues. But in Dynasty, they're probably still going to be the three. I would say they would be the 3 top. Correct?
Yeah. Yep. You're gonna.
I mean, I don't see how you could go any other way.
Yeah, it's really, it's the main difference that you're going to notice in your Dynasty formats that you won't in your redraft leagues is guys like, let's say, for example, Zeke could go number 1 overall, which, it could also happen in your Dynasty League, but because Saquon is, almost 3 years younger than Zeke, you're more likely going to go with Saquon. You know what I mean? He doesn't have as much tread on, doesn't have as much wear and tear on his tires, that Zeke has. Zeke has, whatever, 500 plus carries more than Saquon has. He also has, 3 years in the league while Saquon only has 1. This is, his 4th year, going into his 4th year. So, when you have similar players, where you go, oh, this guy could outscore this guy by 10, 15 fantasy points, you're going to go with the younger guy because you're going to have him longer. So it's really the strategy that you want to use in Dynasty. When you have 2 equal value players, just take the younger guy is basically what you're going to be looking at in Dynasty leagues.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would think guys like, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones probably dip a little bit further because of their age.
Yeah, you see them dropping like the second round, where in redraft you're seeing them go in the first.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, maybe say a Mike Evans might hop up a little bit. Juju definitely hops up there. Juju's probably a definite first rounder.
He might be even like a top 5 pick. He's young.
Yeah. Juju might actually be the number 1 receiver in Dynasty. Yeah. So, in drafting for Dynasty, Steve, Dan, do you guys more go in for a win now mode? Do you build for your future and say, hey, I may have to sacrifice a year or 2, but I know 3 years down the road my team is going to be great? How do you guys approach, the draft when you first get into it?
I think you got to basically draft for the future. You can't mortgage the, take the guys you guys were just talking about, the sexy guys, your Julio Joneses and your Hopkins, who's incredible, but is, in a few years in, I think he's in his 6th year now. You can't, it's as great as those guys look on paper. Your Juju is above and beyond because he's younger. And if this is if you're going into your Dynasty league, it's a league that you want to be in for a while. It's a smarter pick. So I think, you may not win the first year, the second year. I mean, you may. I mean, Juju had an unbelievable year last year. So you do get those young guys that sometimes produce incredible. But I think, mindset-wise, I think you need to do your research, plan your team out, with what draft style you want. If you still want to go 0 running back, that's all. That's still perfectly okay in Dynasty to do. You can keep your same draft, your draft scheme, but you have to, you have to draft accordingly towards the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Dan just said. In Dynasty, we are going to get into more depth into what Dan was just saying, but in Dynasty is definitely a situation where after, let's say, the 5th pick, I am definitely going a wide receiver because you're just going to have those guys longer. You're going to have your, even Julio at 29 years old, Julio could play until he's 34. You know what I mean? You're not going to have running backs that really play. You got your Frank Gore, but who's starting Frank Gore anymore? You know what I mean? You could have running backs that play into their 30s, but they're not as productive as a wide receiver at 30. You see what I'm saying? So, if you're going to take, you can take Julio and feel confident that he's going to give you production for the next 3 or 4 years in a Dynasty league, as where if you were to take, let's say LaShawn McCoy, who just turned 30.
Good point. Good example. He literally was a guy that popped in my head as soon as you.
Yeah,
I was going to say him. I would have said him.
Yeah, so you're not starting LaShawn McCoy. You might be starting him if you go 0 RB, but you're not confident in LaShawn McCoy. You're definitely confident in Julio. You see what I'm saying? So in that situation, wide receivers in Dynasty are worth their weight in gold, especially those top tier superstar guys. Your Odell Beckhams and your Juju Smith-Schusters and all those guys. They're, it's great to have a great running back, those young guys, but they're going to fall off way before the great wide receivers fall off. So for me, I definitely draft for, I would say now and later, but after pick 5, I look definitely into, getting my wide receivers, those young guys, especially in a 3 wide receiver, dynasty league. A lot of dynasty leagues are, starting 3 wide receivers and then 2 flex starters, and things like that. So there's a possibility you could start 5 wide receivers in your starting lineup. If you start your team off with, an Odell Beckham and then go in this next round and get Julio and then, just kind of let the draft come to you and it just happens to be 3 or 4 wide receivers off the board first, that's a strategy to use. Definitely.
Yeah, actually, looking at some standard rankings here for Dynasty and PPR, you could literally wind up with, say, Odell Beckham, Julio Jones, T.Y. Hilton as your first 3 picks.
Yeah,
and just kind of ride it out. I mean, I think when you talk about the wide receiver versus running back thing in Dynasty, clearly favors wide receiver. It's clearly favoring wide receiver. I mean, the running back position, the shelf life for a running back almost seems like it's 5 years of good play, and then it just seems to tail off. Now, obviously, the good ones and the better ones are probably going to last maybe 6, 7, 8 years, but most of these running backs, you're getting a shelf life of 4 to 5 years, and some of them don't even last that long. So when you're drafting for Dynasty, obviously, like Steve said, you're going to kind of start off with those top, running backs where it's, Saquon and Kamara and McCaffrey. But even before you take Zeke, you may go Juju, you may go Odell Beckham, you may go, one of these receivers that are just, they're young. They're able to, they may give you, for instance, Odell Beckham right now is 26 years old. Odell Beckham might give you another 10 years, whereas a guy like Zeke, he might break down over the next 4 years, and that's all you get from him. So, it's definitely is. If Dynasty definitely favors a wide receiver and early wide receivers.
Yes, definitely. It's like I said, it has to do with how much production and how long you're going to get that player for. If you like a perfect example of, a running back that you might not be thinking is Todd Gurley. And it's because of the knee injury. We all know, for this year in a redraft league, love Todd Gurley. For me, he's definitely a top 5 or 6 running back. But knowing the extent of the injury and knowing that, it's a concern, him only being 24 years old, yes, he's still young. But it's definitely a concern, and are you going to take a concerned, player in Todd Gurley, guy that you have a concern with, or are you going to take, Juju? To me, it's a no-brainer that you're going to take Juju, especially because Juju is, I think Juju's 22. He's 22 years old. You're
22 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have Juju for the next at least 10 years of high quality production, barring injury, obviously. Anybody can get injured. So you can't say the wide receiver will never get injured, but for the most part, if Juju stays relatively healthy, missing a game here and there, you're going to get 10 years of great production out of Juju, as where with Todd Gurley, you might get another 2 or 3. And then, the knee injury takes its toll on him and he starts to slow down and, the team moves in a different direction. And it's just, you're just always going to want to have that wide receiver that, I'm going to get, especially rookies. So, like N'Keal Harry is a guy that, he's the number 1 rookie wide receiver, in basically all Dynasty. If you can get him, he's 22 years old. You're getting a N'Keal Harry for the next 10 to 12 years, and everybody knows that. So, it's just one of those things where those guys are going to be more productive for you for a longer time. Now when you're talking about win now or win later, I think that strategy really formulates itself after, I would say, round 3. If you are, let's say, a middle, let's say picking 6, 7, 8. If you're picking 6, 7, 8 and, you end up taking, let's say, Odell Beckham, then like Kev said, you come back and take Julio, and then, the very next round you have T.Y. sitting there, right? To me, that's a win now team because, Julio is 29 years old. T.Y. Hilton, also 29 years old, I believe. I think he's 29. So those are 2 older
T.Y. is 29.
Yeah, so you have 2 older wide receivers there that are very productive, and they're going to be productive for at least the next 3, maybe 4 years. Those guys should be productive. Ty maybe not. Ty I would say maybe 2 or 3 years, but Julio, with as good as Julio is, you're probably going to get another 4 years out of him. So to me, that's a win now team, because you're not going to have Julio for the next 10 years. You're not going to have Ty for the next 10 years. You got those guys, and now you start formulating a strategy. Okay, the next guys that I'm going to be taking, I got to make this a win now team, and then build for later. You know what I mean? Like in the later rounds, take some rookies, take some, some other guys. You just you want to throw it in. I don't think you want to be set in any one way. I kind of think you got to let the draft come to you, and when it comes to you, then you can figure out if you're a win now team or a win later team.
Yeah, I think that's actually perfect. Like, I looked at last year's draft that we had, because we started our Dynasty League up last year. And I'd be honest, I never did Dynasty before. It was my first Dynasty League. And I learned a lot from dealing with the draft process. And what I kind of tried to do was find as many young players that are already productive. So I got Tyreek Hill on my team. I got Cooper Kupp on my team. I drafted Will Fuller. Like, these are all guys that I wound up with because they're all youthful, yet I've seen them produce. And I think what that did was give me the ability to compete in year 1 and year 2. And going forward, it just could possibly make me, a powerhouse. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the key, is finding guys that are in between the ages of, say, 23 to 26 that have already shown the ability to produce. That way you're kind of getting a guy that will be around for a while, and yet you can also, you're also going to get immediate production out of him. So therefore, like you brought up Todd Gurley. Where would you feel comfortable taking Todd Gurley in a dynasty draft?
It is, to me, it's completely different than redraft. In redraft leagues, I'm not letting, if I'm the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th pick, I'm not letting Todd Gurley pass me in those picks. But in Dynasty, in Dynasty, I don't know if I'm taking Todd Gurley before round. I would say.
All right. Well, let me do
2.
this. How about we do this? All right. So, would you take Todd Gurley before you take James Conner?
No, I'm taking Conner.
Me
okay.
Too.
Would you take him before you take Marlon Mack?
No, I'm taking Mack.
That's a tough one, but I probably do the same, Steve. I probably have to go Mack. They both had awesome breakout seasons. I mean, what you're going to get out of Todd Gurley, but these guys they're on really good teams. The ceiling's high for them.
Yeah, it's the knee injury, man. It's the knee injury. I mean, Mack doesn't have that knee injury scary.
Would you take him before Kerryon Johnson?
That's probably right around my cutoff. I would definitely take Gurley before Kerryon. Yes.
Yeah, I take him before Kerryon.
Would you take him before Aaron Jones?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Oh, I would take him before Aaron Jones, only because Aaron Jones has been injured basically every year he's been in the league. So, his longevity is probably not that long for this NFL.
Very true. However, I think same can kind of be said about Marlon Mack. I think he was injured a little bit in his rookie year, and last year he started off with the hamstring. So, but I don't think his injuries have been really knees or ankles or anything like that. They've kind of just been soft tissue injuries. Yeah.
Is Marlon Mack still on your team, Steve? Because in our league, because I know I traded him. I drafted him.
Actually, I traded him to Kevin. I traded to Kevin.
Yep. Kevin,
or Aaron Jones.
Is he a keeper? Yeah. Kevin, is he a keeper on your team? You think?
He's a definite keeper.
Yeah. He's
man,
he's
a 6th-round keeper for me.
He went through the 3 of us. I drafted him late, and I just got frustrated because he always seemed like he was gonna. The news was good. I kept him on my bench because it was like I knew there was potential there. I was like you, Steve. I was really big on Andrew Luck and just what this team was with Frank Reich, just what this team was building. I knew they were going to be a powerhouse, so I kept him around. And then eventually I was like, I can't have this guy sit on my bench anymore. And you saw something in him, and we made a deal for him.
Yeah.
I might have. I don't know. We made a few deals. That might have even been like with the Chris Godwin deal. I think that might have been like young stud for young stud.
Yeah, I think it was. I think I.
There was other players mixed in there too, but I think
Yeah.
that's what.
Yeah, I think it was like, man, who was it? Yeah, it was like Rex Burkhead, I think. Rex Burkhead and Godwin for Mac and something else.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I guess I can't complain. Godwin. I drafted Mac, who's going to be a stud, but I got Godwin in return, so it's a good trade off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Godwin actually might be a better keeper considering where you're getting him kept at.
15.
Considering where you're keeping him in 15 compared to me keeping Mac in 6. So you probably got a better keeper out of the deal.
Yeah, Godwin is a 5th or 6th round pick now. So if you figure, Mac is, let's say late 3rd, early 4th, something like that, I think. So if you're just going by draft capital, you got a keeper that's going in the 5th round, in round 15. That's great.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
so
back to Dynasty.
I was going to say, getting back into the Dynasty talk a little bit. So, all right, I'll bring up another guy, Antonio Brown. I mean, we know Antonio's up there in age. He's on a new team now. I'll throw some names out and see, if you're comfortable with Antonio. Let's say Stephon Diggs.
That's a good name.
Yeah, I like Diggs a lot too. We talked about Diggs in the wide receiver portion, and we're both high on Diggs. I go Antonio Brown still.
Yeah, I go Antonio Brown. Yeah, I think I go Antonio Brown only because I think Antonio is one of those outlier players. I think he's going to produce until the age 35. So if that's the case, you're going to get another 4 or 5 years out of Antonio.
Yeah, Antonio's 31 right now.
He's a smart player.
Let's say four more years of production. I think I definitely could see him producing until 35. He's just a hard worker, dude. He's just one of those guys that, when you watch him practice, dude, he's a fucking animal. This dude is just an animal.
He don't take a lot of hits either. He's smart. And for as many targets as that guy hits you or gets, you don't really ever see him taking shots over the middle. He knows how to run routes. He knows how to use the field to his advantage. He game plans against every defender he's up against. I mean, there's a reason why he's, the top ranked receiver for the past 5-6 years in fantasy. Not this year, but overall.
Yeah, he's been amazing. Yeah, we kind of talked to him in the offseason. He's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting because I'm looking at it here. You got Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Kenny Galladay, and Brandon Cooks all at the age of 25 years old. Yeah. Antonio's at the age of 31. Obviously, Antonio is one of the best receivers of all time.
Yeah.
But when you're in a dynasty league, I think all those players are kind of, questionable when it comes to Antonio.
Yeah.
I think all of them are very, very capable of going ahead of Antonio and being more successful for a dynasty team. And I think it all goes back to depending on where you started at. I mean, it looks like from these rankings, Antonio's going in the late 2nd round. He's actually right behind Stephon Diggs here. So you actually may have started your team with one of those. Let's say you start with Zeke Elliott. If you start with Zeke Elliott, you might want to go Antonio just because you're kind of in win now mode a little bit. Yeah, you got 2 studs to start your draft, and you can even probably come back around and get a George Kittle or a Zach Ertz or a Kerryon Johnson even according to these ranks. So. Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends on your team. I mean, it all depends on how you started off and where you're at when Antonio's coming around. I mean, if you're in the late 2nd round, you think you got a chance of waiting for him and he can come back around to you. Maybe you want to wait till the 3rd, but
yeah, to me, this is the one thing about Dynasty that I think a lot of people, when they, start drafting their team, they might go a little crazy, I guess, a little bit with the age.
With the youth movement.
Yeah, with the youth movement. Okay, so most dynasty leagues, they don't last more than 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean, let's be honest. Most people lose interest because their team sucks, and then you're trying to fill teams, and it gets harder and harder to fill a spot. And most dynasty leagues will finish after 4 or 5 years. Sometimes even sooner, depending on how dominant some of the teams are. So you almost are wanting to be in a win now mode just because of that fact. But in the same breath, you got to look at, okay, so let's say, who was the player that you gave me, Kev? It was Diggs. Okay, so Diggs, let's just, all right, try to imagine this. Diggs has his all-time best season this year, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say he gets 100 catches, he goes for 100 catches, he goes for, I guess with 100 catches, let's say
1,400.
Yeah, 1,400 yards. Let's say he averages 14 yards per catch. So let's say 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns, right? Great season by any standard. Mm-hmm. That it's not an Antonio Brown season. And Antonio Brown's great season is 140 catches, 1,800 yards, and
I wouldn't say that high because I think that's breaking records. But
that's his upside.
125, I would say 125.
Yeah,
125 and 1,700 yards and
15 touchdowns.
15 touchdowns is a great season for him. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what I mean.
That's number one. That's number one every year.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what you're talking about when you're talking about Antonio Brown. That's what you guys got to keep in mind. You got to keep in mind that this guy is not just a good player. He is a great player. He is a
Hall of Famer.
Yes, he's a Hall of Fame type player. And Diggs, as much as I love Diggs, I just don't see Hall of Fame in Diggs' future, period. I like Diggs. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be a solid player for the Minnesota Vikings for a very long time, but he is not Antonio Brown. So, let's when we kind of think about these things, that's a good example only because of the age. If Antonio Brown was 29, it wouldn't even be a question. It would just be like, nope, hell no, I'm taking AB. So, it's just one of those things.
Gotcha. So when you get into the Dynasty, does your philosophy on quarterback change at all?
Yes, it does. So depending on what Dynasty league you're in, there's a lot of Dynasty formats that are 2 QB leagues. Obviously, you're taking quarterback in, first round, second round in a 2 QB league. You need to get at least one stud quarterback within the first 2 rounds. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. I mean, if you're a person that waits because you really want to wait, that's not a bad idea either. But to me, Patrick Mahomes in a 2 QB league, I'm trying to get him. I want that production for the next 15 years because that's, if you're looking at the age of the really elite quarterbacks right now, they're, Tom Brady's playing until he's about to be 42. You know what I mean? You got Drew Brees playing at 40. You got, the guys are lasting longer than they used to because they're not getting hit as much. So, but if you're just talking about a 1 QB league, for me, I'm not taking a quarterback until real late. It's even later than in my redraft leagues because in Dynasty, you could take. I would feel comfortable with like a Kyler Murray taking him in round. He's going to go a little bit earlier in Dynasty, but let's say the 9th.
He's going to go really early, I think.
Yeah, he's going to go earlier, but even Dwayne Haskins, I would be cool with taking Dwayne Haskins and then just taking a play now guy because I do think Dwayne Haskins is going to be good. So, I would take. Let's give an example. I would do something like a
Dwayne Haskins, Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, something like that. Just an older player that I know I don't need to start in the next couple of years because I think Dwayne Haskins is gonna when they start surrounding him with some weapons and all that kind of stuff, I think he'll be a lot better. So, that's a perfect example. Ben Roethlisberger, Dwayne Haskins. That's something I'm 100% cool with, and I'm getting Ben in probably round 13 and Haskins in probably round 18. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where people see Haskins and they're just not high on him because they're looking at what's going to happen this year. As where in Dynasty, they still do that. They still look at what's going to happen this year, and Haskins is falling super late. So I would definitely be cool with that.
I'd like your boy Steven, Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I think he's a stud in Dynasty.
Yeah, I agree. I
think people are going to take.
Yeah, you can get him in later. 12th round.
Yeah,
yeah.
If you're in a 1 QB league, and if you're in the 2 QB league, then unless you're really ballsy and you want to take him in 10, 11 and pick someone else. I mean, if you're really high on him, but yeah, if you're in a 2 QB league, you definitely got to go with like an Andrew Luck and then piggyback him with your Josh Allen or your Kyler Murray. If you can get him 9-10ish, one of the young guys that has the upside.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. If you got
Andrew Luck.
I'm just so happy.
See, I think. See, for me, the top 4 I would be looking at would be obviously Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, Baker Mayfield. I think those are the top 4 guys I would be looking for in a dynasty league.
They're the proven guys.
All 4 of those guys are all young and all studs.
Yep.
I think that you're getting 10 to 12 years of production. I mean, obviously, Steve just said, dynasty leagues typically are 5 years, and people are probably done because their team's out of it and stinks. But all in all, if you're really drafting for dynasty, you want a solid guy that's going to be around for 10, 12 years. Those are the top 4 guys to me because they're all young and they're all studs already.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're, in a dynasty, it's common sense. Just use common sense, guys. I mean, you're not going to take Tom Brady in round 9. I love Tom Brady. And I hate Tom Brady, but I love Tom Brady because he's the best quarterback ever. I'm a Bills fan. I hate his guts.
I was about to be like,
he will outlast the dynasty leagues.
Dude,
watch, just on spite. He will outlast the dynasty leagues.
That guy's the bane of my existence. But in the same breath, as much as it is like, bending over and being kicked in the balls repeatedly watching Tom Brady win championships, it is also ridiculously retarded to be drafting Tom Brady, round 9 or 10 in your dynasty league. It's just, and it's funny because I've seen it happen a bunch of times where guys are, wait on quarterback and taking Tom Brady. Come on, like eventually this guy's got to fall off, don't he? Like, doesn't it just have to happen? Like,
is that a statement or a question?
It's both.
I mean, it's. After watching this Super Bowl last year, man, I wouldn't be surprised if it's this year.
Dude, he looked terrible.
I mean, he honestly was not good last year at all. Tom Brady was not great last year at all by any. I mean, they literally got to the Super Bowl off of running Sony Michel into the ground and just short passes.
And their defense played a lot better in the second half of the season.
100%. I mean, Gronk and Brady, they're both the Hall of Famers. They were very average at best, for the Patriots, especially for the second half of the year. I mean, they really got there off of running Sony Michel, short passes to James White and Edelman, and playing good defense. So I would not be surprised if Tom Brady's, cliff year was this year.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of the Peyton Manning year, like the year before he won the Super Bowl. Because let's be honest, Peyton Manning did not win that Super Bowl. The Broncos defense literally carried them. But if you remember that year before, right?
He was God the year before.
No, he for the first half of the season, and then if you remember the second half,
it was 2 years ago.
Fell off. Yeah.
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
well,
2 years before that, he was awesome.
He got hurt in the Rams game. They had Robert Quinn coming off the edge, and
yes, he got
smashed. I think he got smashed, and after that, he just was not the same for the rest of that year. But the year before was when he was God. Yes, 2 years before they won the Super Bowl, Peyton Manning was maybe had the best season ever.
Oh yeah, 54 touchdowns. What was it? 55 touchdowns. 55 touchdowns. 400 yards. That's the best. That's going to be the greatest football season ever.
He threw like 13 touchdowns to Julius Thomas. Who is Julius Thomas now?
Oh, I know. Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Well, anybody who goes to Miami and falls into a pit of nothing. So
that is the seventh circle of hell. Go to Miami or the Jets. As much as everybody talks shit about Buffalo, guess what? We've never been as bad as the Dolphins or the Jets.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. I mean, that's another thing that just has helped the Patriots for the last 10 to 15 years is that they haven't had no competition in that division at all.
Nope. I mean, Buffalo's tried. I'll give them that. They get A for effort because they've definitely tried to put teams. And this is Buffalo's problem. Everybody talks shit about Buffalo, but the Buffalo's problem is they win 7 to 9 games every fucking year, and it's annoying. It kills me. I think in the past 20 years, if you look at the Buffalo Bills record, they've only had one season where they lost more than 7 games. Like, that's insane. Like, they just are literally they're the definition of mediocre. Like, they're just the middle of the pack fucking team forever.
The Dallas
and
Cowboys
ever.
of the AFC.
Yeah, that's what they are. They're literally what they are. They don't lose enough games to get a really, really good player, and they don't win enough games to, have really good players want to come there. So it's literally like, it was like the Sixers where, how the Sixers were stuck for that 10 years of just being, Andre Iguodala and, all those guys. It's literally just that's what it is, except we've had that shit for like 20 years now, and it's like, oh my god, I just want this team to be good.
In the NBA they call that purgatory.
Yeah, that's literally what Buffalo was in. They were in fucking NFL purgatory.
So let's switch back to a little bit of Dynasty again. So let's talk a little bit about rookie drafts for the remaining time here. In rookie drafts, I mean, obviously, I think it's safe to say that Josh Jacobs is pretty clearly the number one pick.
He is consensus. He would not be my number one pick, but yes, he is consensus, 100%.
So would you go Miles Sanders?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
And, if I'm being honest, I would go Miles Sanders number one, and I don't think it's close, if I'm being completely honest. So, for me...
Man, if Miles Sanders turns out to be as good as what you think he is, I think all of us as Eagle fans are going to be incredibly happy.
So this is the thing. Okay, so let me explain a little bit. Next year's draft, the 2020 draft, there's no running back in the 2019 draft that's touching any of the top 5 guys that's coming out next year. This is the thing about Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders was my favorite running back coming out of this class. Not only was he my favorite running back out of this class, he went to the best landing spot that he could have gone to. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to paint the picture. So this is the picture that I'm going to paint for you guys. Everybody's talking about how the Bears with David Montgomery, the Bears' offensive line is good. They're not a great run blocking offensive line. They were the number 2 pass blocking offensive line last year, which makes them really good. But this is the thing. So Miles Sanders is going to a team with I believe the Eagles finished number 3 in pass blocking last year. Not only that, they have 3 linemen in the top 5 of their position.
I was going to say PFF Pro Fantasy or PFF rankings. They actually are the number 1 line in the league this year.
Yeah, dude. Not only did they have 3 offensive linemen in the top 5 at their position, but they also have Andre Dillard, who is arguably the best tackle coming out of college this year. You know what I mean? So even when they lose, what's his name?
Jason Peters.
Yeah, Jason Peters. They have somebody to replace him immediately, like a no-brainer replacement. This guy is going to be running behind one of the best offensive lines with one of the best young quarterbacks in football, with one of the most dynamic, playmaking wide receiver crew and tight end crew in all of football. He literally went to football heaven for a running back because there's no one specific spot that you can focus on with the Eagles. You can't try to take away Ertz because Deshaun Jackson will kill you. You can't try to take away Deshaun Jackson because Ertz and Alshon will kill you. You can't run blitz the fucking Eagles because they have the best offensive line in football, and they have too many weapons on the outside. Literally, there's no one way that you can try to cover the Eagles to take Miles Sanders away. So the dude is literally never going to see 8-man boxes, and I think he has a lot of talent. I think he's really super talented. I think he's the most talented running back that came out of this class. So all that put together, to me, it's a no-brainer. Miles Sanders is the number one dynasty pick. I don't think it's close. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Josh Jacobs is getting picked because of his high volume. He's going to get a ridiculously high volume, everybody keeps saying. But guess what? The Eagles.
That might just lead to a quicker career.
Yeah, you know what I mean? He's getting high volume behind a shit offensive line with, pretty good receivers now that they got Antonio Brown. But I don't know what the hell Terrell Williams is because who the fuck knows what Terrell Williams is going to be this year? You know what I mean? They don't have a good tight end. They don't have their offensive line is just mediocre at best. Their quarterback. I haven't seen anything out of David Carr to make me think that he's a great quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, to me, situations make football players. And guess what? Josh Jacobs is not even in the same stratosphere of situation
system,
of situation and system that Miles Sanders is.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think I would still go Josh Jacobs, but going back to the way we kind of said it. I mean, you can't even be mad if somebody goes N'Keal Harry number 1 overall.
Yeah.
I mean, considering that the wide receiver position is just going to last longer, I mean, the one thing with N'Keal Harry, I guess you have to worry about is Tom Brady eventually retiring, and who knows what's going to happen, with their backup situation. But, I mean, overall, N'Keal Harry could literally be the number 1 pick, just based off being a receiver, the longevity of his position compared to Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, or David Montgomery. So, I guess it's all about what your need is at the time of the rookie draft. I mean, if you go in needing receivers, you may go N'Keal Harry. If you go in needing running backs, maybe you go Miles Sanders or Montgomery or Jacobs. I mean, for me, I probably would still go Jacobs if you're talking about consensus, but I wouldn't be mad if somebody took N'Keal Harry, Miles Sanders. I don't think I could justify taking Montgomery ahead of Jacobs is the way I could Sanders, but I could definitely justify N'Keal Harry.
Yeah, I agree. If you need a wide receiver, N'Keal Harry is, to me, above and beyond every other wide receiver in this class. I know a lot of people are, talking up Paris Campbell and, talking up, Deebo Samuels, DK Metcalf. The different guys are getting talked up. But if you're talking about, just pure situation, and you're talking about pure talent, and you're talking about, who is the best, wide receiver in this class? To me, it's not close. It's N'Keal, and there's a very, very big gap between where N'Keal is and where every other wide receiver is in this class.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at, say, McCole Hardman, I feel like with McCole Hardman, you're almost banking on Tyreek Hill disappearing. I mean, I think that's the only reason they drafted him was because they were worried about Tyreek Hill's situation. And I mean, I don't know how McCole Hardman plays onto their team with Tyreek Hill there.
He doesn't.
Marquise Brown. I mean, what have you seen from Lamar Jackson that makes you think anything of what Marquise Brown could be? I mean, you look at what John Brown was doing with Joe Flacco last year. John Brown was actually doing really well.
Yeah.
And as soon as Lamar Jackson came on the field, John Brown went into the fucking toilet. Yep. I mean, it was over for his season was over. Who are some of the other receivers? Andy Isabella. I mean, I don't think you're taking him over N'Keal Harry. No. I like his system. I think his system has a chance to really be productive, especially for him. He's going to be playing a lot in the slot, and apparently this, the offense that Arizona is going to use is going to be very beneficial to slot receivers. So, the air raid offense could be very beneficial to the slot receiver. So Andy Isabella could see some immediate production, but I don't think you're taking him over N'Keal Harry. Paris Campbell obviously is another one that's got a lot of hype, but N'Keal Harry he literally looks like a Randy Moss type when you see him. Like, he's just going up and getting balls over, he's making defenders look small.
Yep.
Like, he's just he looks like he's a foot higher than every defender when he's making a play.
Yep. Yeah, he's definitely, and that's the other thing. It bothers me. Okay, so his biggest knock is that he doesn't separate. But how well did Dez Bryant separate coming out of college? You know what I mean? Like, when you watch Dez in college, did you think he was a separator? Like, did you sit there and go, Dez is like, got this dude beat by 5 yards? Like, no, never. Was Dez Bryant great? Yeah, hell yeah. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, Dez's longevity wasn't long. And I'm not saying, that Dez is a Hall of Famer, but what I am saying is Dez was very productive for a good 6-7 years, and N'Keal Harry is in that same mold. He's one of those guys that is really good. The difference between the two is, if you watch Dez coming out of college, right, his production was go get ball, right? No breakaway speed, no juke this guy out of his shoes, none of that. But guess what? I can tell you numerous times that I saw N'Keal Harry catch a ball and go from one side of the field all the way to the other side of the field and then hit the sideline and score a touchdown. You know what I mean? Like, he's elusive. He's very elusive. He is one of those guys where, he was taking back punt returns for touchdowns. You know what I mean? He took back kick returns for touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't see Dez Bryant doing all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I think the separation, people, the film grinders that saw him not separating, also need to take into account that he has playmaking ability. You know what I mean? A lot of playmaking ability. So when he gets the ball in his hands, he's dangerous. And the way that the Patriots operate is an option. It's a wide receiver option game. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have set patterns. Like, you'll never see Julian Edelman running, the same pattern over and over because it's his option. You know what I mean? Literally, he goes out there and Tom goes, listen, if the defender comes up here, this is where you have to break off. If the defender goes there, this is where you have to break off. It's literally, it's to how the defense covers them is what route they're running, which is why it's so hard for rookies to learn the system. You know what I mean? So N'Keal Harry might not be amazing this year. He's going to be good. There's no doubt in my mind that he's probably going to see 85 to 100 targets this year because just of the sheer volume of targets that are going to be thrown in that offense. He's going to see the targets because they don't have anybody else. But, he might not be super productive because he's still learning that system. He's still learning, if this cornerback plays me this way, I have to run this route. If this safety, drops down into the box, cutting off my slant pattern or cutting off my, whatever route I'm running, I need to know where to go. And Tom Brady expects me to know where to go. You see what I'm saying? So, it's just one of those things. It kind of, for N'Keal, I think it's going to be more of trying to figure out the offense. And as soon as he does, he's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. Any players in the rookie draft in the late, say in the third, fourth round that you're looking to kind of target and select in those rounds? I know, Steve, I'll give you one off your list that I know you've been big on is Justice Hill.
Yeah.
Because you've been getting him in regular drafts outside of Dynasty and rookie drafts. Anybody else that you've been targeting in those later rounds, in those 3, 4, 5 rounds of rookie drafts?
Yeah, there's a couple of guys. Oh man, let me think here.
JJ.
Well, JJ's going probably I think JJ's going in the second round of most rookie drafts. The running back for the Green Bay Packers, Dexter Jackson. Is it Dexter Jackson? No. It's Dexter
Williams, maybe?
Dexter Williams.
Okay.
So Dexter Williams is a player that was taken in the 6th round, so I think his draft capital is pushing him down. But if you actually watch him play, he does have some shiftiness. He's kind of, he's a bigger guy, so he has that. He has the size, to be a NFL running back. And I think, people are maybe sleeping on it a little bit, especially because of the Aaron Jones injury, history. He's just always hurt. And I think if Dexter shows that he can play, what has, the other Williams shown you? You know what I mean? What has Jamal Williams shown you in that offense to make you think like, okay, this guy could be, if Aaron Jones gets hurt, he's going to be the bell cow. So, he's a player that I like. I'm trying to think a wide receiver late. Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
What is his name? From the Redskins. Oh man.
The slot receiver you brought up the other day. What was his name?
No, that's
no, not the slot.
Yeah, not the slot guy. Oh man, it's gonna bug me. Man, I want to say Trayvon Edmonds, but it's not Trayvon Edmonds. Trayvon Edmonds is the linebacker for the Bills. Give me
well, while you're thinking about that, I'll bring up one guy I like to target. I like targeting Deontay Johnson. He was selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Has a similar frame and build, honestly, to Antonio Brown. I think they're going to give James Washington first crack at that outside job. They may even throw Moncrief on the outside this year. But I think going forward, I think Deontay Johnson has a lot of upside in an offense that loves to throw the ball. And, they're going to need somebody to step up outside of Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju's not going to be able to, you ain't going to look at 250 targets a year. I mean, you look at, I believe he had 166 while Antonio had 168 or 169 last year. So that's 337 targets. Juju's going to rise, but obviously other guys are going to need to step up. And I think going forward, Deontay Johnson's a guy that, I got him in our Dynasty rookie draft in the 4th round. I was ecstatic about that. So, yeah, that's a guy I've been targeting in my rookie draft.
Yeah, definitely. So
I'll throw a quick tight end out there too, you guys, real quick. Like, what do you guys think about TJ Hockenson? I mean, if we're talking about rookies and coming from a school that just produces monster tight ends over the last few years.
Yeah, Iowa's just the tight end powerhouse.
Well, it's all they do.
I was going to say between George Kittle, now they got Hockenson and Noah Fant. I actually do. I actually think T.J. Hockenson has a really a big opportunity to be a beast. Yeah. He's probably, I would think, a 1st-round pick at this point. I mean, considering the lack of tight ends in the NFL right now, or at least fantasy football wise, like if T.J. Hockenson or Noah Fant for that matter, if either one of those guys proves to be a great receiving target, I mean. In a world where tight ends completely suck in fantasy football, both of those guys have the opportunity to be really successful picks in a dynasty format.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like T.J. Hockenson. I think in the NFL nowadays, to be a good tight end, I mean, not only do you have to have the benefit of playing for a good team, but you also need to be able to block, which T.J. Hockenson can do. And,
yes.
Because if you're not a guy, and this is kind of my thing with Ingram, from the Giants, he's not a blocker. And
Noah Fant is the same as Ingram. When I watch film on Noah Fant, he looks exactly like Evan Ingram out there to me.
Exactly. And you kind of know what they're out there for. So when they're out there, they're not running the ball, they're throwing. You know what I mean? But with TJ Hockenson, when he's out on the field, you have no fucking idea what they're doing. I mean, they could be running a sweep, they could be, running a power, they could be running. There's no formation you can set up where that he's not out there, that he's not contributing. He's contributing in every facet of the game, and I think to be a great tight end like a Travis
Gronk.
Kelce or a Gronk or a guy like that, you need to be able to block. And which is why Eric Ebron was another one that everybody was like, oh, he's going to be the greatest thing ever. Ebron can't block for shit. I mean, he's gotten a little bit better.
Cannot.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten a little bit better as he's gotten in the league. But that's why Jack Doyle is the starting tight end for the Colts because he can block. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. If you can't block, you can't be a great tight end in the NFL. You can be a productive one, but you can't be great. And T.J. Hockenson can be great.
When Ertz came out of Stanford with back when, with Luck, I don't know if they count the same year, but I know they were like roommates and stuff. He was a horrible blocker. Like that's why they kept what's his name on the roster for so long? He just retired, Brent Selleck. That's why they kept him on the roster for so long, because Brent Selleck he lost his ability to run routes, but you basically knew right off the bat, like if Selleck was in there, run play. Ertz was in there, pass play. I mean, there's no trickery, there's no design when you have a two-way guy like that can do both. Like you said, your Travis Kelce and your Gronk, and now TJ, who just he's a beast. The kid's an every down tight end. It just makes your offense a whole lot easier. But Ertz has definitely. They said he's a thousand times better of a blocker. Yes. It just goes to show you like what kind of work ethic he has. I mean, the guy. He had a great tight end, blocking tight end that he was able to learn from. So, definitely. But yeah, no, I'm big on TJ. I'm really excited to see what kind of year he has this year.
Yeah, definitely. So, so the late round guys I have it here: Terry McLaurin and Kelvin Harmon. So both of those guys are, Terry McLaurin, as you all know, played for Ohio State, which is Dwayne Haskins' alma mater. So they already have that rapport. So Terry McLaurin is a guy that I'm trying to get in rookie drafts only because of that rapport. I do think Dwayne Haskins will, even if he doesn't start the season, the number one quarterback, which I don't see how he doesn't. But if he doesn't and he starts playing later on, he's already got that rapport with Terry McLaurin. I think Terry McLaurin is going to be the highest targeted receiver on that team. Kelvin Harmon is a guy who's a big body. Got taken, I believe, in the 6th round. But, he had a 2nd round grade. There was a lot of people giving him a 2nd and 3rd round grade. He dropped because of – I think he dropped – he doesn't have any off-the-field issues, so it's nothing like that. I think he dropped more because of, NFL is getting away from the prototypical, wide receiver. They don't want the 6'3", 6'4" guy who, is that prototype guy anymore. They're looking more at the fast, speedy guys, and Kelvin Harmon doesn't grade that way. He's not a fast, speedy guy. He's like I said, more like a Dez Bryant, those type guys that the NFL is kind of trying to get away from. So, Kelvin Harmon, I think, could be good, but Terry McLaurin is definitely a late round wide receiver that if you're looking for, go get him, because Dwayne Haskins, when they drafted him and they talked to Dwayne, asked him how how that was going to work out and if he was excited to get him, Dwayne was like, "They got my boy. That's what I wanted them to do, and they did it." So, super happy that he's with me. So, he's definitely a guy that I think Dwayne is going to look to a lot.
And I thank you for that, because I actually just snuck onto our Dynasty League and picked him up just now. So
there you go.
So with that, I think we are going to conclude the podcast for today. Remember, if you're listening, check out the website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That's www.4thandinchesff.com for, all kinds of content. And remember to hit that subscribe button to stay in touch with us. And we are out. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, guys.
Take it easy, guys. See you.